Retirement is a major milestone, but as we know, life is unexpected, things change, and as you enter into retirement, you need to look at your financial plan. In this video, I'm going to go through 5 different things you need to look at and review as you get close to and enter into retirement to make sure that your financial and retirement plan is on track and doesn't blow up on you along the way. The very first thing you need to do is reassess your financial situation. And this really comes down to your budget and spending. And a big question we get all the time is, okay, Adam, I spend X amount. Let's say it's $5,000 a month while I'm working. How much am I going to spend in retirement? And really what it comes down to is working through an Excel spreadsheet or your budget calculator, whatever you use to track those expenses. And I know as you get into your 50s and 60s, doing a budget really isn't at the top of your list. It isn't at any age, but especially as you get older, you feel like you're kind of past that. But I really encourage you, a year or two before you hit retirement to work through your budget and try and figure out how much of our daily budget or monthly budget that we spend now won't be there in retirement. Ideally, as you head into retirement, unless you're a big spender, as you head into retirement, you want to keep those first kind of go-go years of retirement, the first 5, 10, 15 years of retirement, fairly close to what you're spending now. That means that your lifestyle won't change. Maybe you're going to spend less money, traveling to work and eating out, and there's some things you're going to reduce, but we want to increase the travel budget. Typically, there's some line items in your budget that will fall, but we want to bump up that travel and expenditure on that side of things. So if you can keep those first go-go years of retirement fairly close to what you're spending now, that's great. Now, if you're a high income earner, high spender, that may not be the case. It may drop off, but hopefully, you put yourself in a good situation to still have a really good income in retirement. When we build out financial plans, we always ask, what are you spending now? What you expect to spend in retirement? And again, I would say through retirement, look at that kind of 70, 75% on average. But ideally, the go-go phase should be closer to 85 to 100% of your current spend. Then it can tail off from there. The second thing you need to do as you enter close to retirement is evaluate your investments. And a lot of you don't do this enough. Some of you do it way too often. And I typically say you should be reviewing your investments about every quarter, maybe twice a year if you have a really good financial planner and investment advisor that's looking after the portfolio. So those two people ideally are talking together. So for our clients, our office does planning, then we have an investment firm or firms that look after our client assets. So we can kind of update the plan on our end and communicate with the investment advisor, which we do all the time, without the client even getting involved. We want to make sure our clients' investments are on track with the plan, which is really important. Now, most of you deal with one person or a small office, and that person is, quote unquote, doing your investments and planning and everything. I would dig into that a little bit further, but now's the time to review your investments to make sure that they line up with your cash flow needs. Now, as you enter retirement, the old saying was you need to decrease your risk. You need to move more bonds. Well, I think that world has changed, but talk to your investment advisor just to make sure that your goals and objectives line up with the risk tolerance that you're taking on. And again, as you build out a financial and retirement plan, look at what rate of return you need to get in order to reach your goals. And are you able to reach those goals with the current risks that you're taking? Let's say your financial plan shows that you need to get a 6% rate of return after fees in order to reach your retirement goals, but you're invested in very conservative portfolio. For a lot of you, you're paying 2% or higher in fees, which means that you need to get over 8% per year on average just to net out at your 6. And if you're in a conservative portfolio, that may not be the case. So either you need to take more risk, which may not be the best thing as you're into retirement, or you need to scale back your retirement spending and goals, or work a little bit longer. And this is where your plan needs to come together with your investments and make sure they work together. And the biggest thing, and I always push this, you need to look at cash flow. Is your plan producing the cash flow? Is it structured in a way to give you the cash flow that you need without selling stocks at a low? And I know a lot of you watching this video, you do like high income investing, the passive investing stuff, which is great. You need to then look at, am I structured in a way from a tax perspective? Maybe the cash flow pays your lifestyle, but you don't want your, the capital of your RSP at $1 million, let's say, or $500,000 sitting there for the rest of your life. That's a big tax situation down the road. So look at your investments, the structure, how it works, and make sure the cash flow is going to be there when you need it. So the third one is plan for unexpected expenses. And we all know, because we've lived many years on this earth, that unexpected expenses come up. Now, we don't always know what they are because they're unexpected. Within your retirement plan, you need to plan for this. And it may be putting money aside. It may be having a home equity line of credit there just in case. It may be building it into your financial plan. The best thing to look at, if you're not sure, like, how do I get this going? When you hit retirement, a great thing to do is, if you own real estate, have a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, open and attached, but at zero balance. And that can kind of be your buffer in the background. So if you do have an emergency, you can utilize that if needed, and then create a tax plan to pay that off, in the years ahead. The other thing I would look at is make sure you have a really good TFSA funded, and ideally also a non-registered account if your TFSA is maxed out. So those two accounts, they create that flexibility if you need some cash flow or some non-taxable cash flow in retirement for these unexpected expenses. We know they're going to come. We don't know when and how much. So just be prepared for that. Build that into either your monthly budget or your annual cash flow plan. The fourth one is to evaluate your income sources. And I always talk about income sources as silos. And as you head up into retirement, you're used to collecting one paycheck. So, your net pay comes into your bank, your work takes off the proper amount of CPP and EI and taxes. So basically the net amount comes into your bank account, you file your taxes every year, and you might get a small refund or you might pay a small amount. It's very easy. When you hit retirement, you have way more income sources: CPP, old age security, your RIF, your LIF, your pension plan, TFSA, non-registered, it's on and on and on. And if there's two of you in the household, multiply that by 2. So you could have 10 plus income sources coming into your bank account in retirement. How do they work together? What's the taxes? What's the best one? I would say there's taps, right? You don't want to turn on all the taps at once, but there's certain taps you need to turn on at certain times to create tax efficiency. Kind of my golden tip here is your retirement plan should have a very level average tax rate through retirement, or at least until life expectancy in your mid-80s. So if you have a financial plan built out for you and they're taking CPP at 60, they're deferring your RSP or your RIF meltdown, and your tax rates are all over the place, that's probably the worst plan ever. In fact, you're probably better having no plan than having a plan like that. The fifth and final one, and a lot of people overlook this, is evaluate your estate plan. Now, when I say estate planning, a lot of you just default to your will and power of attorney, which is good. You need to have those up to date. But from a financial planner's perspective, I also want you to look at what is your tax on death? What is being passed to your kids, charities, grandkids, whoever you're passing your money to? Or how has your planner worked your plan to make sure that there's very little left? Now, a lot of people hire us and they say, look, Adam, we want nothing when we die. Like, we want to die with a penny in our pocket, which is really tough to do because we don't know when you're going to die. Obviously, we can kind of reduce the house, sell that off, spend that money. Like, there is ways that we can kind of plan ahead. It's never going to be perfect because, again, we don't know your date of death. But whatever your plan is, maybe it's passing money to kids or grandkids or a charity of your choice, you need to make sure that your plan is structured in a way that is very tax efficient to make sure the most amount of money goes to the people or charities that you want it to go to versus CRA. And so when we talk about estate planning, there's two parts of it. There's the will, power of attorney, kind of the legal side that a lawyer or notary will put together for you. And there's the financial planning side, which is whatever I have left needs to go in the most tax efficient way to the people or charities that I care about. And again, what are the triggers to see, like, is my plan actually structured well? Look at your estate tax, your expected estate tax within your plan at your mid-80s, which is life expectancy. So at age 85 to 86, 87, in that range, if the estate tax on your financial plan is above 0, I would ask why. Maybe you have a rental property, something you haven't sold, that's going to create that tax bill. That's fine. But beyond that, your estate tax should be 0 or very close to 0 by that age. And if it's not, that means they haven't kind of gotten rid of the RIF or the RSP or the LIF, these registered accounts, quick enough. And so that's how you create a very efficient estate plan, is to make sure you have no estate taxes. Now, a lot of you, last tidbit here is, a lot of you will look to avoid probate. So if you're in a province or territory that charges probate, which I'm in BC, we have probate here, 1.4% above $25,000. A lot of you will look to, how do I avoid probate? And you end up doing things to your financial plan and your assets and beneficiaries that create more issue. And I'll give you one example of this, but again, talk to your financial planner to make sure that you're not making these mistakes. Let's say you have, a house and you have an RSP or a RIF, and they're roughly the same account value, and you basically say, look, one of my kids is going to get the house, one of my kids is going to get the RIF or the RSP when I die. And let's say they're both worth $300,000. If you were to pass away and the house was worth $300,000 and the RIF was worth $300,000, your child that you left the RIF to through direct beneficiary on your RIF account would get the $300,000. What happens though is that $300,000 is taxed in year of death, meaning that your estate owes the taxes on that money. Now, that child has the $300,000 in their bank account. The other child who gets the house once it's sold is kind of left up the creek because they're going to sell the house for $300,000. That money goes into the estate. Then the taxes are paid of $150,000, and that second child that was left the house only has $150,000. So there's not an equal balance between assets. Whereas that RIF should go into the state. Yes, there's probate to be paid, but then taxes, the house is sold, all that, and then it's equally distributed. So you have to pay attention to these things. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to estate planning. So make sure, again, you talk to your financial planner or your notary or lawyer about this to make sure that stuff flows properly when you pass away.